So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I'm sipping some tea. I love my tea with lemon in it. You know, black tea with lemon. Put some sugar in if you want, or whatever you use, sweet and low, Splenda, whatever. But I use regular sugar, child. But black tea is very good for you. Also, another thing that is good for you, especially if you're rich in, how can I put it? I want to talk in code. If you're rich in neutrons and electrons and protons, if you're rich in that area, and those who get it, prune juice is very good for people like us as well. If you know, you know. Just a little food for thought. But let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's talk about self preservation and what that really signifies and means. Excuse me. It means that you don't throw people away or anything like that, but you put yourself first. So you can be there for the people that mean something to you and you mean something to them. Sometimes I think people mistakenly sacrifice themselves in the name of self preservation, meaning that they think that self preservation is about being there for people who don't deserve you, who don't deserve your goodness. So self preservation is about self and taking care of self. And that's a spiritual lesson too, that we really need to understand and that we really need to adhere to. It's time that we separate those of us who have the mindset to do this. It's time that we separate from ideologies, spell work that does not work for us anymore. And like I was explaining to my play little brother, spell work is, it has multiple levels to it, but just a general understanding of spell work, my interpretation, I'm not telling anybody that they have to follow this, but my interpretation of spell work, it's a quantum thing. Spell work can be tied to quantum manipulation. We water it down, or we say spell work to give people a more humanized um, understanding of spell work. But for me, spell work is one of the highest hierarchies of reality manipulation. And whatever tools you use in aiding you in that is totally up to you. You understand what I'm saying? Especially if you are a practitioner of some sort. So I like to look at spell work as the ultimate quantum manipulator. You use spell work to manipulate and shape the quantum reality that's suited for you. And you can use it to manipulate the quantum reality of someone who may be coming at you aggressively with spell work. You understand what I'm saying? And that's all part of self preservation. And I was telling and explaining this to um, a plain little brother of mine who is very powerful in the art of spell casting. Very powerful in that. And that's because of his background that I'm not going to get into. But he has a background of very, very powerful dark magic. And I don't mean negative. I mean hidden, dark, powerful. But it's time for like minded people to separate themselves, in a sense, from the chaos, the mayhem, the more primitive ways of life and thinking. And it's time for us as evolved, enlightened, spiritual beings having a human experience. It is time for us to move on from these petty beliefs and false narratives that we believe spiritually. It is time to move on from those things. And one of the things I want to discuss is race. I want to discuss race because race is one of those things, and politics and religion, that really keeps people stuck in a quantum reality of expectations that never get fulfilled, not even for the ones who are considered the superior race, allegedly. Because think of it this way, if you were satisfied as a superior race, and I mean, this can apply to anyone, if you were satisfied, or if you are satisfied, why are you constantly searching for more power, more bloodshed, more control? Why are you constantly searching for more if you are superior? If you are superior, there would be no need to constantly keep searching for more power. That shows there's a glitch in your matrix. Let me say that again. That shows you're really showing not superiority or superior traits, but you're showing that there's a glitch in your matrix. And I'm not talking about one particular ethnicity or race, I'm talking about a mentality. I'm talking about a subconscious mentality that manifests as a reality that we're living in. Because what people call the elites, or whatever you want to call them, it's not just made up of old white men. It's made up of black people, white people, Asian people, Arabic people, Korean people, etc., etc., etc. It's made up of multiple people who have access to ancient information, and they know how to manipulate humanity And some of these people may be working with higher forces to keep humanity in a state of enslavement and bondage. And how do they do that? They use drugs, they use propaganda, they use lies, they use fear, they use all of these things to keep you hating someone else because they tell you that that person is taking something away from you. So if you were so, or if they were so superior, which they're not, they would not have to constantly be searching for control. You know what superiority looks like to me, and I'm just being layman? Someone that is satisfied, someone that is comfortable, someone that is at peace. That is superiority to me. Corrupt people, corrupt people are never at peace. And it is your right. It is self preservation, excuse me, to enforce and ensure that you have peace in your life. And the only way I think that people are going to have peace is if people detach from what they've been taught, what they think they know. This is not about holding hands and having a racial kumbaya. It's not about that. Even that is mind control. It's not about creating a cult. What it's about is understanding that we've all been duped. We've been taught to fear and to dislike and to hate, but it's up to you to follow that path of ultimate destruction and torment for eternity. It's up to you to follow that. I encourage people to go back to their childhood and think about what you were like before the world became, before you became knowledgeable about the world. When I go back to my childhood in the 1980s, I want to say prior to crack coming on the scene, because we all know that that entity of crack destroyed so many lives, blacks and whites, and others as well. It destroyed so many lives. But when I go back to the 1980s, I think about how I was when I was a child, and it was such a beautiful period prior to crack. And I had a teacher, and I've told this story before. I had a teacher. Her name was Miss Norrell. And I didn't know Miss Norrell was white. I didn't, white and black, none of that really mattered to me when I was a child. None of that mattered to me. It wasn't until I started getting older, the propaganda started, the mind control started. I started learning more and more about so-called history and about what happened to black people, and I started getting very angry. And I'm not disputing that those things happened, right? But what I am saying is this: when I was a child, none of those things mattered, and my life was fine. It wasn't until I became older a preteen and a teenager and then a young adult, that those things started to permeate into my subconscious. All of the mind control and the subliminal programming of, oh, the white man is better than you. That's I'm just saying that for the sake of, whatever. The white man is better than you. You ain't shit. The black race is under everybody. See, this is the stuff that they program our minds with. In the same breath, they say that they're instilling values and strength and character and what's the other word? Encouragement inside of us. When they're showing us Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and all of these other, so called black leaders. And I'm not knocking them, but they were part of the CIA handbook to subliminally program, here we go, spell work, subliminally program black people into believing that we are a permanent underclass. And we put white people in a category over top of us. And that spell work still it's still with us. And I know what people are going to say, well, what about slavery and how that has affected our DNA? Well, that's true too. But that's where genetic alchemy comes in. And that is where we come in. We're supposed to be the, how can I put it? Those of us who were born in a certain era, I want to say Generation X primarily, we were supposed to be the ones to break the chains of that curse. But instead, we exacerbated it. Not all of us, but a lot of us did. Because we forgot about self preservation. We forgot about self preservation. We forgot about that and what that really meant. But that's where genetic alchemy comes in, where you're supposed to do genetic alchemy on self with the assistance of someone who is a legitimate whatever to help you understand that trauma that's in our DNA. That trauma is in our DNA, it's in our genetics. So when I go back to Miss Norrell, the teacher that I had in, what was that, kindergarten, I believe, or first grade? I think that was kindergarten. I didn't pay attention to her skin color. You know what I paid attention to? How she made me feel and how nice she was to me, how kind she was to me. That's what I paid attention to. It didn't matter to me. I mean, now I know that she was a white woman, but then it didn't matter to me what her race was. It didn't matter. And again, let me say this as a disclaimer. This is not about holding hands and saying kumbaya, we love, I love you, you love me, let's get together like family. No, it's not about that. But it's about understanding the mind control that we have been put under and the realities that we've created within the quantum and our quantum without even knowing it. So I have decided to reprogram myself and put myself under my own ritual and spells. And you can do the same thing to ritualize yourself under your own spell work that will benefit you. And that's what I have been doing. And I have seen results. Now, I'm not one to tell people what to do in their spell work. Whatever you do or whoever you go to, that's your business. But I'm just telling you what I've done. I'm not telling anybody to follow me. I'm just encouraging people to come up from under what you've been told and taught. Because guess what? It's been all lies. I don't see white people as my enemy. And quite to be quite honest with you, most of the people who have showed up as enemies has been other black people. And I'm sure if you asked white people if they're being honest with themselves or other ethnicities, most of the people that have showed up as enemies have been people that look exactly like you. This is not about kumbaya. Let me say it again. It's about self preservation, your self preservation as a spiritual being having a human experience and what you want that experience to be. And I have decided that no one shall have dominion over my mind, over my body, over my thoughts, over my emotions. And when you meet someone who is aggressive coming at you in that way, then you deal with that person accordingly. We know that there's racism in the world. We know that things happen. We know what's going on. But just because we live in the world, it doesn't mean we have to be of it. I had a white man that lives in my building racially profile me about a month or two ago. And I've been living in this building a lot longer than him. But the thing is, the way that I'm starting to look at it now is that there's a great separation coming. And those type of people, no matter what skin color they are, those types of people with that mindset and that entity, they're getting ready to be cut off. They're getting ready to be cut off. They're no longer going to be able to access the higher realms. See, I'm the higher realm. Some of you are higher realms. And I'm noticing that a lot of people, I'm just noticing changes because I have a good spiritual eye. I don't see what everybody else sees. I see something differently, and that's what makes me unique. That's what makes you unique for those people who really rock with me, the few that do. And I know I don't really interact with people in the comments because I keep comments turned off, but that's for a reason. Because I'm not here to interact with you on that level. Because I'm not here for a cult following. I'm not here to get views and all of that. I'm just here as a messenger. That is why I am here until the day I die. That is why I'm here. I'm not here to get people to agree with me. I'm not here looking for friends. I'm not here looking for way to goes and hurrahs. And you surely said that right. I'm not. I don't need all that. I don't need all that. I'm here for one purpose only, and that's to spread a particular message, to free your mind, and to control your own quantum reality. And some people don't like you saying that because that insults them, because that makes them feel like they're inferior. Because they want to know, well, how do you know how to do that? Or what do you know? I don't care about those people. I don't give a fuck about them. Because those are the people that are stuck, and those are the people that will keep you stuck. They're in your family. They're especially the religious ones. They are stuck in a constant cycle that most of them unfortunately will be in for a very long time, if not forever. because they don't want to change their mind. They don't want to flow with the flow of change. They don't want to change. They don't want to elevate. But a lot of these people I'm noticing they are disappearing and they're fading away. And I don't mean physically, but it's almost as if they can't reach the higher realms anymore. And I've talked about this before. We are in the age of self-preservation. And that's what we should be focused on, self-preservation and understanding what that really means for you as an individual spiritual being having a spiritual experience. Do your spiritual work, whatever you do. Go to a reputable person, whatever you got to do, whatever. But these old systems and old ways of thinking, they are dying out. They are dying out. And the problem is we have people, let's just say, and entities who want to keep people in the old way of thinking. They want to keep you stuck on black versus white versus black, racism, sadness, sickness, disease, misery, then death ultimately. Then you recycle and come back into the flesh. That's if you can. You live again. Sadness, racism, disease, misery, sickness, what's the word? Depravity, then death, then come back. This is the cycle they want to keep people on. Because the less you know, the more that feeds them, the more that feeds these entities who are non human, who are taking advantage of humanity's ignorance about the real universe. Of course, there's life out there in the universe, but the more advanced life, the more civilized life is cloaked. It's in universes far, far away that we can't even comprehend. And it's human life, just like us, but they are highly more advanced. Just on some out there type of shit. I know what I know. Don't ask me how. But it is really time for people, like-minded people, not everybody, because everybody's not going to get it. But it is time for people who are highly evolved spiritually like us to really start shaping the quantum realm, your quantum realm, the way that you want to. It is time that we start doing that instead of following someone else, instead of following the old mindset, which has brought nothing but misery to everyone, all ethnicities, and all people, not just one particular group. This way of thinking has caused so much misery. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank or how much money you lack. Misery is an equal opportunist. Depravity is an equal opportunist. It's not about being a vegan. It's not about not being a meat eater. It's not about a body size or anything like that. It's about your mindset. It's about your mindset. Because I hear some of these people talk about being vegan and all of that. If that works for you, that works for you. That don't work for me. Wendy O. Williams, not to be confused with the talk show host Wendy Williams, but Wendy O. Williams, who was the lead singer of the rock group, the heavy metal group, the Plasmatics, she unalived herself in the late 1990s. She was a vegan. She was very spiritual. She loved animals. She never hurt animals, etc., etc. And she ended up unaliving herself. She attempted to do it 2 or 3 times. I loved her in that movie, Reform School Girl. She played Charlie. She played like a stud character. It was a really good exploitation type of movie. It was a B movie, and I've talked about that before. But the point that I'm making is she was a vegan, and it did nothing for her because she was a tormented person because she was highly spiritually evolved, living in a very low, dense world. She was constantly being attacked by the institution of the police. And she was a white woman, by the way. And they didn't like the fact that she was very friendly. In her words, she said that the police used to beat her up because they told her, "You are too friendly towards N words and agates." And y'all know what I'm talking about when I say agates. They weren't ready for that type of revolutionary type of energy. She was a revolutionary because she changed things. She was able to change the quantum reality. And anyone that can do that, like us, we are a threat to them. That's why they send people out to harass people, stalk people. If people don't understand by now that Donald Trump is a cult leader and you are still following that low vibration, if you're still following that, if you're still following that, and you don't understand, they showed you what he was about in American Horror Story season 7. They showed you that that entire season was about him. That season was about the inside of Donald Trump's mind. Season 7 of American Horror Story, that was an inside track inside of Donald Trump's subconscious mind. And people are still following that monstrosity. Now, I know I've agreed with some of the things he's had to say at times. Okay, I get it, I got it. But I'm looking at this from a spiritual aspect. Kamala Harris represents the rise of Kali Ma, also known as Santa Sima Muerte, the Holy Mother of Death, which the two are really the same, just named they're named differently in different cultures. So if you are a patron saint of Santa Sima Muerte, you should be voting for Kamala Harris. I'm just saying. If you are a patron saint of Santa Sima Muerte, you should be voting for Kamala Harris because I'm looking at the spiritual. She represents change and the change within the quantum realm, while Trump represents keeping the same old network, the same old system. This is not about politics. This is not about human politics. This is about spirituality. You got to look beyond because sometimes change may be bad, but when you really examine it down the road, it may be for a better cause or it may be for betterment down the road. Trump represents the same thing, the same system of division. Has anyone noticed ever since he came into play how everyone seems to hate each other now? How when he got in office, there's been so much division and dividing everywhere you go? I remember one time it was easy to talk to white guys, but y'all have allowed Trump to get inside your mind and to destroy whatever consciousness that you had. When he wouldn't even have you come to Mar-a-Lago, half of you, and have tea with you. You think because he went into that McDonald's that meant some shit? That was all for the cameras. That was all for the cameras. I'm not saying either one of them are the best people, but I'm looking at it from a spiritual concept, not a concept, but a spiritual bird's eye view. You got one over here that represents change, and you have the other one over here who represents the same network, the same old thinking, the same way, the same ways, the same way of life. While this one over here is going to bring radical change. And even if the change is uncomfortable, it's necessary. This isn't about liking the human, it's about looking at the spirit. And that's what self preservation is all about, examination of self. Anyway, this is the occult view, and that's all I really have to say, I think. I don't really have too much more to say. I'm not going to even, well, let me say this before I go. I'm not going to even address that bull crap with the Marion Barry donuts that suggested um, some type of drug use, and they had suggestives. I'm not even going to even talk about that. We all know that that's what that's about. That's about keeping people trapped. It's so interesting that this will be the 10th anniversary coming up of his death in November. And they want to come up all of a sudden with this these powdered donuts that really makes a it implies or gives an inclination of his drug use, his struggles with drug abuse at the time that he was mayor. It's so interesting they want to bring that up around the time of his passing. That's interesting, isn't it? I'm not even going to touch on that. That shit has been shut down anyway. It's been shut down. But in closing, let me just say this, a little further. Self-preservation, self-examination, self-realization, self-survival, and separating yourself from that which no longer serves you. And the old system, the old way of things is no longer serving us. And we, as highly evolved spiritual beings having a human experience, we have to understand that skin color, ethnicity, all of those things that they have been using to keep you trapped, it's no longer serving you. And the only thing that it's going to do is continue to keep you trapped even when you're not in your physical body. See, it's a whole different ball game when you're no longer in the physical body. We come here to learn, we come here to transform. We come here to do genetic alchemy in the physical body and transform ourselves. Not in the way we see in Hollywood or Hollyweird, but it's a transformation of your mind and how you think about stuff. Doesn't mean we're not going to get pissed off about things. It doesn't mean that there is not racism and oppression. It doesn't mean that those things does not exist. It doesn't mean that. It just simply means that you recognize it, you deal with it, and you move on. I'm not going to be mad at all white people or all white men because of some ignorant white man that lives in my building who's half dead anyway. I'm not going to be mad at all white men because of that. Because I know that there are some white men and white women or people in general who would have defended me. Because I've had it happen. So that is why I say we have to separate from these mindsets that are no longer serving us. This is not about, you thinking that some other race is up here and you're down. No, it's not about that. It's about recognizing what is right in front of you. And I see exactly the game. I see the game that is being played with all of us, no matter what your background is. I see the game. You don't have to like me, and I don't have to like you. It's not about liking a person, but it's also not about hating someone. It's also not about attacking someone because you think that that person is beneath you because they're different. It's not about that. And see, that's where the problem comes in. And see, that type of subliminal programming has been programmed into a lot of people. And that's what's keeping a lot of people trapped. And at the same time, there's a great separation that's coming, like I said. And I see it happening right now. There's a great separation that is coming. There are reality shifts and what do they call them? Dimensional shifts that are happening to multiple people right now. That is why a lot of people feel so tired. I went through, let me tell you something. I know I said I was done, but I'm not done yet. I am going through a major reality shift. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my being. And when I say I feel it in my heart, I mean it is an amazing feeling because the things of the past, all of the pain, all of the, hurt and the loss that I went through in the past, I have a better, deeper understanding of that now. Even when things are not going the way that I want them to go, there is something deep within me that says, Seer, don't worry about it. Even if things don't always go the way that you want it, some kind of way they always work out. They may not work out exactly how you wanted them to, but some kind of way they always work out, don't they? And that's dark magic right there. That's dark quantum magic. And that's what I'm talking about. Mastering your own quantum reality with your thoughts and digging deep within inside of yourself. There was an article that came out talking about the dangers or the dark side of meditation and how some people who meditate, it causes them to basically have some type of psychosis, depression, and anxiety and stuff like that. Well, here's the thing with that. That article was trying to discourage people from meditating and getting going into a meditative state. And they were saying that gurus do not warn people of the adverse effects of meditation. Well, let me tell you something. That article was absolutely right. That article was absolutely right. There is a darker side to meditation. And the darker side is that you're tapping into your darker side. It's not all love and light and moonbeams and rainbows. When you go into meditation, you're not going into meditation to feel good. You're going into meditation to find out why you so fucked up in the head sometimes. And what happens is it pulls out all of those toxic negative emotions that have been programmed within your subconscious mind that you may not be aware of. You know how I can speak on this fluently as a master of this is because it happened to me. When I started first getting into meditation for a few years, it was bringing up emotions of anxiety. It was bringing up panic. It was bringing up all types of depression and all types of things that were programmed in my subconscious mind that we no longer think about from over the years of living and having traumatic experiences. That those energies, they go somewhere and they can create a reality of the all on them on them on their own. They go somewhere and they can create a reality all on their own. So when you're meditating, it's not about feeling good. It's about getting to the bottom of why you're so fucked up sometimes. It's about getting to the bottom of why you feel so fucked up sometimes. And when those emotions come to the surface, you don't run from them, you sit in them, you understand them. And if you cannot understand them, then you go to someone who's reputable, like me, and I can tell you what's going on so you won't panic about them. So the article was right, but the article was not really breaking it down and explaining why that was happening. That's what is supposed to happen sometimes. Because when you go into your subconscious, even me, because I'm no exception, I'm just like everybody else, it happened to me. It happened to me. A few years ago, I was just at a place of total panic and anxiety because not only because of what was going on in my life, but because I was going through a spiritual evolution. And now I'm at this place of clarity. I'm at this place of peace. And the old ways of thinking have passed. But in order for you to get to those places, you do have to sometimes go into meditation to figure out why you're so fucked up in certain areas. Why are things not working out for you? The reason things were not working out for me is because I had a lot of past life trauma, parallel universe trauma, which was happening simultaneously within different realities that I was dealing with. I had people throwing spell work at me that I crushed. Yeah, see, I don't talk about that stuff a lot. That I crushed and sent it back and destroyed them. Yes, I did. So while that article was telling the truth, it wasn't explaining it properly. Sometimes when you go into meditation, it's not going to feel good. It's not. And anyone that tells you, oh, you're going to feel, no, that may come later on. And even still, as long as you're living in a physical reality, as long as you're living in the physical world, you're going to always have people throwing stuff at you. You're going to always have obstacles. But the thing is, when you elevate to a higher state of consciousness, those things just won't affect you the same way. You're going to still have problems sometimes, but you will know how to deal with them spiritually in a much more fluent way. Anyway, I didn't plan on being here that long. I just wanted to talk about that. And this is the occult view. If you know how to find me, I do consultations. Um, you have to pay me though. It's not for free. You will pay me for my time. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.